But yeah, we have hi everyone. It's the House of I podcast, and today we have a special guest, Rav Soto. What's up, man?
Glad to be here, guys.
From Smokestack Lightning. That was actually the first time I met you. Was years ago. Technically, I think 5 years ago at fucking the Market on 7th.
Damn, time flies. Holy cow!
I know. We were playing. I think we played on the same lineup that night.
Okay, that was towards the very beginning. Actually, I do remember what you're talking about, and that was at the very beginning of the group. That was when I was starting to get my footing together. We sounded completely different back then too. It's a lot of stuff has changed, but
the lineup specifically, right?
Yeah, Ebor. Oh man, to say the least, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, but okay. So were you born here in Tampa? Are you from here?
Yeah. So I'm a Tampa native, born and raised in Tampa, '94, St. Joseph Hospital, baby.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was born and raised in Tampa, and then I started playing music in Tampa, but I didn't start playing music until I learned how to play music in about the 5th grade, but I didn't start taking it seriously until early high school.
Okay.
And that was in Tampa here. Yeah.
And did you, was your first instrument the guitar? Was that what it was?
Actually, my first instrument that I ever picked up was the cello.
Really?
Which is I know.
What?
This is something totally unexpected, but so the way it went down was like this. Before I really knew anything about music or anything like that, in elementary school, what they did was they had a class. I think they called it like strings class or something like this, and so every Friday, the kids that were in that class got to leave the regular class and go do the strings thing, go play the strings. And there was this girl that I really liked, and she was in this class. So I was like, damn, I want to be in that class, you know what I'm saying? I want to leave the class and go hang out with this chick. And I was like, but I want to be like manly sort of thing. I don't want to play no violin or anything like that. So I asked them to get me like the upright bass, and of course they couldn't afford that. So my parents got me a cello instead. It was the next best thing. I was like, well, that's big. I could deal with that. At least it's still big. And so and I actually got pretty good at it, to be honest. Like I picked it up pretty quickly, and I stuck with it for about 4 years. And I was in the orchestra throughout middle school and high school and stuff, and then I learned to play drums after that.
Okay.
And that was really fun. And so that was when I started to transition more into rock music, more so than like classical and stuff. I started learning about music more and like listening to more music than that wasn't just like Spanish Christian music, which is what I was used to growing up. Yeah, my parents were super religious and old school Puerto Rican, so it was all like Latin music and Christian music and both. Right. Latin Christian music too. So it wasn't until I saw that movie School of Rock with Jack Black that I started. That's when I learned about rock music, which is the funniest thing. Some random movie, but like I must have watched that movie 1,000 times.
That's cool though, man.
So when I was so then I learned how to play drums and then guitar, and then the rest was history. I stopped playing the cello altogether and just dove right into guitar.
Yeah, because you shred on the guitar, bro. You're really good at the guitar.
Thank you, man. I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
I can't say I try to like achieve any sort of sound. I just have fun, so what happens.
Yeah,
but I definitely appreciate it, especially from you, because you're a good guitar player too, man.
Thank you, bro. I'm not fishing for compliments, but but no, your playing actually reminds me of like the 60s style of like playing guitar. Kind of like an Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix type of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
like,
that's definitely good that you say that, because those are guys that I listened to a lot starting out. I've definitely always been more I always gravitate more to older style stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout middle school, especially, I was listening to Cream and Hendrix and the Doors and Zeppelin. Nice. I think it's probably because I saw that movie. That's the music that I started checking out. That was it. I fell in love with it.
That was in high school.
This was started in middle school for me.
Gotcha.
Before I started playing music, I was really listening to it a lot. Because it wasn't really accessible to me like that, like instruments or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I was really listening to all that stuff in middle school, because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. I thought everyone was doing that, but everyone was on some different stuff. I never really got the pop punk wave or like the screamo metal phase or anything like that.
My Chemical Romance.
Yeah, they were listening to My Chemical Romance. I was listening to Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, that's cool though.
And I don't know, it just resonated with me in such a way that I just dove right into that stuff. And so when I started to play those instruments, and it was more than just like Guitar Hero and stuff, I started to have a lot of fun, and try to create my own identity.
We're actually really similar in that sense, because before I started listening to rock music, I actually listened to a lot of rap. So like elementary to middle school, I was listening to Bone Thugs, Outkast, all that stuff. Yeah, and then in high school, one of my best friends. Yeah, exactly. In high school, one of my best friends, he was listening to like the Beatles, to all that stuff. And he kind of got me into that. Also, my dad listens to all that stuff too. He has a bunch of vinyls from like old stuff.
Nice.
But he got me into that, and then I started listening heavily into like Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Jimmy, all that stuff. So like I guess the inception of me playing guitar like you was me listening to all those old rock gods and stuff like that. And then my music changed. Like the taste changed after that. But that is definitely where I got my basis from, that's cool that I think maybe like our generation, I think we have that in common. Because I'm 20 and turning 26, so you're 20.
I just turned 24 on Friday, so
okay,
we're right
birthday,
there.
Dog. Yeah.
Thanks, thank you. That's actually why I'm down here visiting Garen.
That's cool.
That's cool. I didn't really get put onto rap until later on, because I just didn't really know about it. My parents kind of really sheltered me from a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know about rap really until about like 8th or 9th grade. Started listening to hip hop.
Yeah. What were you listening to?
Well, I came up on the Tony Hawk video games, so I was
me
listening
too,
to
dude.
a lot. Like Underground and Pro Skater. So I was listening to a lot of like Nas and Wu-Tang and NWA. Eazy-E.
Okay, so like The World Is Yours, right? From what is that? Is that from Underground?
Yeah.
Is that Underground? Dude.
That's so funny that you say that, too, because that is exactly the one.
Yeah, dude.
That was like my first rap song that really got me to listen to that.
Dude, same
stuff.
here, man. And like, she likes Sublime. And I remember Sublime, there was a Sublime song, and I think Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. What was that?
That's classic.
I don't.
You don't know
same in the end, I think.
I think it's,
it might be
it sounds just like that in the game.
Yeah, it does, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Just the guy singing.
But that's funny, because I remember I'd have to hide my Eminem CDs from my mom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because she wouldn't let me listen to them, and then she'd throw them away. And
wait,
then
so how'd you get
a
them
copy? I would get a copy like from a friend or something.
Oh.
Yeah.
Damn.
And then she would find them and throw them out and think that the job was done, and then I'd be like, nah, I'm gonna just go.
My mom bought me the Marshall Mathers LP, but the clean version when I was a kid.
Which is like a bleep every 2 seconds.
Yeah. And then it also had, like, instead of having the song Kim on it, it had the drug song. What was that? I don't remember. Oh, Kids. It had Kids on it instead of Kim.
Because I was like, Drug Ballad is on both.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But,
yeah, that was kind of cool, actually, now that I think back, that she let me at least listen to even the clean version, but...
Yeah, because that's still
that's a cool mom point right there.
Yeah. She also bought me Grand Theft Auto 3 when I was in 3rd grade.
Dude, my parents did not want me playing that game. I still did, but like they were definitely, because they were religious.
You have to go to a friend's house and play it.
Yeah, that was like the cousin's house while they were playing dominoes and we were playing PlayStation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So are you not religious then? Like being brought up like that?
So I wouldn't say that I'm not religious, but I'm not as like devout really into it. So like I have my personal religious beliefs, but I do live a pretty secular lifestyle, to say the least. And I feel like they're kind of two separate things. It's not like a thing of rebellion. I'm just trying to have some fun, and I mean, I'm religious, but I'm also open-minded, and I'm willing to hear other opinions. I'm hearing other perspectives, other ideals, and just I'm into learning, learning as much as I can. So I have what I learned growing up, but my ears are still open. I'm not like just hell bent on one set of beliefs. It's always changing and always growing for me.
That's well put. No, that's well put. That's because I'm in the same boat too. I guess I would consider myself like agnostic.
Sure.
I was raised Catholic. I went to a Catholic private school in high school, which sucked. I'm not gonna lie.
It sounds like it did suck. Like there's no way that was a good time.
It's not a good time, dude. Like being forced to go to church when you don't want to is never a good time, But,
dude, especially when they're speaking Spanish and you can't understand.
No, they were white, dude. We had my height. Well, I definitely had Hispanic teachers, but like the older, I guess the priests and stuff like that, they were all Irish, actually. Yeah, which was
Irish Catholic.
crazy.
Yeah, that sounds strict, dude.
Yeah, it was.
It does.
That does sound pretty
It
strict.
was awesome.
That sounds like legit as hell.
So I guess So going back, is Smokestack Lightning, is that the first group that you created, I guess?
Well, so Smokestack, I would say, is my baby band.
Okay.
But in the scheme of things, I want to say it was maybe the fourth band that I was involved in. So when I first started playing, I was good friends with this guy, Miles Patterson, for many years, and we started playing in like his concept band. He called it the Warren Winter, and so that's where I got my footing as like a musician. But they were his songs, so we just played them and learned them and stuff. And like that's where I got a lot of my first gigs and first recording and stuff like that. And so I was a part of that band for a while, and then that band sort of wasn't doing much. I started my own little solo project. It's kind of cheesy. I call it Morrison Avenue. Back in the day, that was the Tumblr days, and I was really, So that was just me and my acoustic guitar and my shitty voice, and just doing whatever. So I was doing those two, but the Warren Winter was definitely the main thing. And then once that dissolved and my solo thing wasn't really working out, I started playing bass for this, like it was technically a hip hop group, I guess you could say. It was like a rapper that had a band, so we called it Groove Fist.
Okay,
and what
cool.
it was this guy. I mean, we got compared to Rage Against the Machine a lot, but I mean, there was like a lot of like funk, Latin, basically like if the Doors and LL Cool J had a baby, is like what this group was, because we were into
really
the
strange.
funk and like classic psychedelic stuff, and he was into hip hop, so like he sort of found a way to like rap over what we were doing.
That's tight.
It's definitely a live experience that we never really got a chance to record that, but we played a lot of shows, and all the shows really did well, so I would definitely say it was something you'd have to see live for it to make sense, because explaining it sounds quite funky. But like, because it was a keyboard player, a bass player, which was me, a drummer, and then the frontman just did vocal. But he didn't really like sing or anything. Like it wasn't any like melodic or anything like that. It was all rapping.
Yeah, he just rapped on top.
Right. So instead of a chorus, it was like a hook.
Yeah. There's have you heard
shit.
of what the hell is this group called? Child, what is it? Koi Child or Child Koi? Have you heard of them? Koi Child?
It's not ringing a bell.
They're that's the kind of like, it's kind of like that similar style, except it's more, I would say it's more like jazzy R&B, but they do a lot of like psych rock stuff with a rapper on it. It's pretty tight.
Sounds pretty cool. That sounds like something you'd see on like KEXP or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so when did you start? I guess technically speaking, then when did you start actually playing gigs? Like, well, how old were you when you started playing gigs?
I started playing gigs, I want to say around 16. And my parents weren't super hyped about me playing in bars at first. They were really trying to get me to play other stuff, but I was like, there is no other stuff. I don't really know what you want me to do here. Like, that's what a gig is. So,
this is what we need to do.
But we were playing at Transitions Art Gallery a bunch back in that day. Like, that's where I started getting my first shows. I think the very first show I ever played, though, was like in a church. But it wasn't a church-related show. So, like, it was crazy. Like, this church, like, offered up their space for this promoter to have a show there, and it wasn't anything religious, and it wasn't anything tied in with the church, but we just used their stage and like their seating area, and like it was almost like a recital, because everyone's like family and like friends and shit, like, and there was no beer or anything, so like it was really weird.
There's no beer.
Well, not that I drank beer at that time, but like,
I did.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
But damn, so that was the first show I ever played. I was about 16. And like about 2010, 2011 is when I started playing gigs, and I've just been hooked since then. I've been trying to make everyone better and better and better, and I learned that like gigs take practice just like band practice does. Like the music could be tight, but the actual like gig itself takes practice, and you learn something from every gig that you do. Because no matter what, something's gonna go wrong.
Yeah.
There's always something that goes out of plan, and you have to like think on your feet, and so like I got addicted to that feeling early on about trying to make every gig better and better. So since I was 16, about is when I started doing that.
That's cool. Yeah. How have you, like, I guess, have you noticed differences in like the scene back then and the scene now over here? Because like obviously, like, we're not from here, we're from Miami, so this is all kind of new to us, even though we've been here for 6 years, but even then, I don't know. Well,
something I can say definitely about the scene is that it's important to be driven, because there's so much going on, and it seems to be very much of like a who you know type of deal.
Yeah.
that you just have to be, you have to be plugged in and you have to be aware of what's going on and really be serious about it. I had just been gone for about a year now since the last time I visited, so that was definitely the longest time I had been away from home. And even before that, every time I try to visit, I try to book shows here and like stay involved. So like I've tried to stay involved with the scene to some extent while I've been away. Mm-hmm. And something that I've been seeing is that like unfortunately, like there's like less bands being formed new, there's less bands that are coming out fresh. Maybe I don't know, maybe I'm just out of the loop in that sort of sense. Like, because I have seen a surgence of certain bands, but it seems like bands that were really good sort of like dissolved out. Because especially in St. Pete where so many bands share different members. It seems like when one of the groups really takes off, it sort of dissolves some of the other groups. And like people move away or go to school or hit the road or something like that. So I would say definitely for the scene, I've seen like a handful of groups really succeed, like Sonic Graffiti, Johnny Model and the Kilometers, all those types of groups in St. Pete are really blowing up and doing their, like Pleasures is always on the road. My buddy who started Oxmoor, they've been hanging on since back before I moved on. They're a Tampa band. So I've seen them hang on. The Graveyard Groupies are still hanging on. But, so there's a handful of groups that are, like, really doing well. But I'd like to see more, like, DIY stuff come about, or maybe more, like, accessible shows that, like, newer bands feel like they could be a part of, or, like, people can, like, feel more inclined to try to start new bands, or I don't know. I would definitely say I've seen less in
new
the scene than I'd like to, but if maybe if I'm missing out, then I'd like to get educated on what's going on.
I think I kind of agree with you. I think we're a little more aware like of the scene itself, just because we're trying not to be as much of homebodies as we were back in the day, so we weren't really going out to see shows, and now we're trying to make a point to go see shows. So now we're meeting all these bands that we've never, like Last You, for example, that we just saw last night. We've seen King Complex, Pleasures, like some of the bands that you named, Sonic Graffiti, and like obviously like they were the one that you said your buddy's in. I never heard of them, for example, or like so it's like I'm still discovering bands that have probably been around for a while here, and it's like holy shit, there's still more and more and more, but there's only one band.
Nuts, man.
There's only one band, and I'll give him a shout out. His name, it's a group called Tim, and they're like 15 years old, and they're playing. Yeah, and they're playing like fucking what would you call that?
That's sick.
I would say it's like kind of it's super indie, but it's like what's his name? Gus Dapperton. You know who Gus Dapperton is?
I'm not gonna pretend to say that I do, because I honestly don't.
That's good.
Yeah, it's like almost, it's like simple melodic, kind of like groovy parts. I'm trying to think of a band that sounds like this.
Well, that sounds like it describes a sound that's very popular among people in our age group, and like a little younger. Definitely a lot of DIY shows I go to are like people that are more in my group that are not like us, that were more in the classical groove. Seems like they gravitate to that sort of thing. So that's a genre and a sound that I've seen progressing. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You like it? You like Marco kind of.
Yeah, like Marco.
Yeah. I like going to shows. I like going to shows for music that I don't necessarily sit down and listen to. So like I'll go to a show like that all day, but like I can't say I'd put it on Spotify or something like that. Gotcha. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Live is better. Like if I'm gonna listen to a genre that I don't necessarily like, live is probably the way to go.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a little bit more interesting. I find that like up here, I think maybe it's not a band thing, like as far as like the number of bands, but it's like venues. I don't feel like.
That's a good point.
I feel like there's like not as many places to play like there is in like say like somewhere like Miami, and things like that.
And it's hard to get into the existing ones too as a newer band.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For sure. So
that's a pretty fair point. I will say that kind of leads into what I was going to say too, is that there's been a huge surgence in like the hip hop community.
Yeah.
So a lot of beat makers, a lot of rappers, a lot of bedroom type things. And I think that not having an outlet like that is a big contributor to that. Because I know me starting out, it was hard for me to get gigs. That's why when we were talking about Market on 7th, Freddie Vila, shouts out to Freddie, was like the biggest catalyst, because he was one of the only people in town that gave the new guys a shot, because these bars just want to make money. So like they're gonna hire some cover band or some singer songwriter. They don't really care how talented you are, or like the up and coming, you know.
Yeah, and the music too. They don't give they just care about how many people you bring.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so like, it's hard as a newer artist, but these guys make a beat and go on SoundCloud, get like 2,000 views or something.
Yeah.
It's more accessible. So that's a good point, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shit's crazy. It's funny that we're talking about this now because I was just talking. Do you know Jordan Esker?
Yeah, and the
I was
100%.
I'm playing bass with him on tour pretty soon because no one else can make it apparently. But we were just talking about that. Like maybe it's time for us as rock artists or whatever you want to call us to start kind of like getting with the times and releasing music more often. I guess so that's like kind of similar to how rappers do, where they release like a song like a week.
Yeah, instead of like releasing an album at a time or like EP at a time, just release songs.
It's a good idea. It's just like the only thing I could say is that first of all, it's not that easy to record. A band, for example, you can't really do it that quickly. But the other thing is too is like if you're writing a song once a week, I mean, I feel like that you're probably not putting a lot of time into how good that song is. You know what I'm saying?
I could definitely agree with that. I think Jordan's on the right track with that sort of thinking. But I will say that, in my personal opinion, I think it comes down to gigging. Getting on the road and touring as much as you can. Like, try to gig in your surrounding areas. And it's like, try to get out there and play the songs. Because, like, in today's media world, putting a link on Facebook is going to get right in line with all the other millions of links and Twitter and this and that. Like, to me, it's harder to get your link to stand out. But if you got like a vinyl or a tape on your merch table, or like a shirt, or like you give someone a kick-ass show, they're more likely to come out and see you next time, or like go out of their way to look at your music. Whereas if you're putting something on Facebook and like, hey, get it on iTunes now, Spotify now, there's gonna be people that listen to it. But I feel like to get people's attention more is to play out more, and it's not that easy said and done, and that's definitely a great idea because that logic seems to be working out really well for that genre. But it is, like you said, it's a little harder, and it might take away from the integrity. And plus, I mean, us getting out there and playing more creates the fan base more, and it's just better for everyone, because that helps your career further, and it helps your fan base spread, and then it helps people get out to shows more too.
Just getting out there. But I think that would be really tough to do. I mean, you have like if a rapper is writing their own lyrics and he's got someone working on beats, well then it works because both angles are getting worked at the same time. But as a musician, it's like, especially if you're the songwriter, it's like, okay, I'm writing the instrument part, I'm writing the melody, I'm writing the lyrics, and it's just like
everyone has to learn their parts or make a part,
exactly.
If you have a band or whatever.
Absolutely.
It's like you got a guy just writing, and that's his way of getting better though, so it's good that they do it often, but it's just like it's only one part of the whole thing, which is easy to deal with.
And plus, having a job, it makes it kind of hard to be involved in songwriting as often as we all wish we could be.
Yeah, and then obviously for us, for example, we have a member that he's in other bands as well too, and then we have one that lives in Miami right now, for example. It's like impossible to get together.
It's so hard to be in a band nowadays.
It really is, dude.
As soon as you get shit rolling, then like life throws you something. You're like, oh fuck, it's set back again. Like that's crazy. So you guys probably practice like once a week if you're lucky,
Yeah, not even like once a month probably.
Exactly, which is crazy, So it's hard to progress like that, man. And like
it is.
And you don't want to just go record without your people, but sometimes like
you have to. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to,
Yeah. It's so weird. Like sending you the profile now, the Pro Tool session now.
Yeah.
Go ahead and record your part and send it back to me, and we'll see. Like what?
Dude,
that
right?
seems like such a weird.
That could start working though, but that's not like the best way to do shit like that. Yeah.
It's the age of technology, It's just crazy.
Like you can do that, but the Red Hot Chili Peppers didn't record their albums like that, so there's something to be said there.
Yeah, most bands don't. So now you live in Vermont now, right?
Yeah, so I permanently reside in Burlington, Vermont. I've been there for about 2 years now, and the music scene up there is bustling, to say the least.
Better than here, for real?
I wouldn't say better, but I'd say different. Maybe to Tampa, maybe more comparable to St. Pete, just because there's like a lot of DIY, but a lot of bar stuff too. A lot of established bands and a lot of newer bands. It's just music is more accessible out there, I feel like. There's a lot more support. The fact that we have basements is really conducive to the creative community because outside of bars, it's kind of hard to have a DIY space, you know, I mean, at a house or maybe a creative space, but the DIY really helps out with bands getting established because you start in the basements. By the time you get into the bars, you have people coming out to the bars off the bat, and so it just looks good to the bar already versus like just starting out playing to the empty bars. They're kind of like, well, maybe we don't need to book them again.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So.
Wait, so but what do you mean by DIY? Do you mean literally like someone's house and you just like, oh, we're gonna set up a show tonight here?
Dude, yeah, like there's basements around town that are dedicated venues. So like a couple would be like Rat House, and like I ran one called The Cave, you know, Jim's Basement, stuff like that. 99, and since it's a college town, it's like a lot of times these groups of people that everyone in the house is cool with it, and their basement is dedicated for shows. So like it's like a movie. It really is like a movie,
so
dude.
cool,
like
man.
it's nuts. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes I get so wrapped up that I forget to really appreciate it, but like that's why I try to give my all at every show. I like try to mosh and really go nuts and like buy merch from the bands, like because it's really crazy because because of these basements, we get a lot of local activity and we get a lot of touring bands too, because since that part of the country is a lot closer together, things are closer, it allows bands to travel more freely, and like especially being in a college town, so like buying merch and discovering new music is so much easier because these basements have like tables that they can just set that up, and like it's really cool that the people are cool with it enough to like allow shows to happen all the time. I feel like that was a big reason why things are going the way they are.
That's I wish we had that here, because we don't have anything like that here. Like I wish there was house parties, for example, that had bands come play at,
Dude, we had one last night.
Yeah, how was that?
And it was so fun, man. Like literally set up in the kitchen. Like we had the Graveyard Groupies come from St. Pete, and like we set up in this tiny kitchen and we're like jamming in this tiny apartment. And at first I thought no one was gonna show up, so I was kind of bummed. I'm like, these guys are gonna play for 3 people.
Yeah.
But like before you know it, it was a full house, and like people were really jamming and getting down on it, and like we didn't get the cops called or anything.
Wow.
So like it's definitely not out of reach, man. People just gotta like really try to set it up. I mean, I obviously noise ordinance things and this and that, but there's ways to do it without getting in trouble for it.
Yeah, what is the noise? What would be the time you'd have to stop? Like, is there a rule?
Well, I know in Vermont it's 10, but like we were doing that shit till like midnight, 1 o'clock last night, and no one was saying anything. So I mean, I don't know if we got lucky or Florida's just more liberal with it, but like usually between 10 and 12 it's like a good to shoot for.
Can you even hear anything though from the basement, like outside? Is it loud?
Oh, well, in Vermont, 10 definitely, like no question about it, has to be done by 10. Around here maybe a little different, but yeah, you can definitely hear stuff from outside from the basements and stuff. They're not really like super well soundproofed.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So like
it leaks through basically.
It's definitely lucky that these places are around neighbors that are cool with it too. So like just like the homeowners are cool with it, like the neighbors are usually cool with it too. Like living in a college town is definitely a lucky strike for us here.
Yeah, that was kind of the vibe in like we played at a house party in Tallahassee.
That's
and
awesome.
They set up outside, like literally
Damn.
outside. Yeah, and there was like 200 people.
Oh shit!
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah,
Sick. Yeah, I heard they threw a lot of house shows out there.
Yeah, and I wish like not only I kind of wish I lived there, but I wish that happened here, because I feel like that's like the perfect spot for like bands like us. You know what I'm saying? Like
I think that would be awesome, dude.
Yeah, I just feel like that's really where a local scene like blossoms from. It's from shit like that. Where it's not necessarily a bar or something like that. Like obviously like there's still alcohol and fun stuff to do, but it's not
It's not a bar setting though. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah, it's like a party. It's just like a fucking party with music.
You can't smoke weed at the bars.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and that's another thing. Yeah, that would be great. But no, I always wondered. So what exactly, like, what was the whole purpose behind the move? And like, was it just literally for music, or was it
So the music sort of followed with me, and it's crazy how things panned out the way they did. So like, basically when I was in Florida, I was involved with this music stuff, but it wasn't really going the way I would like to it have. But I was determined, and I had been in like a long distance relationship with this girl since about 2011, like early 2011.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, the Tumblr days. I hooked up with this girl from Jersey, and we were like in a long distance relationship for a while. And I truthfully didn't even know Vermont was a state until I must have been not there that day in geography class. So, but yeah, so we graduated high school, and she was looking at colleges out there. I was like, what the fuck is Vermont? I don't know. And so I would go visit her every now and again. So throughout high school and college, I'd go visit every couple months to Jersey and to Vermont. And I got real close with her parents. And so fast forward to about 2015, 2016, and my living situation sort of had like come to a head. And I sort of had, I had moved out from my parents, and I was doing my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it came to a point where I could either move back with my dad in Wesley Chapel, which I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
I could move with my stepmom in Tampa, which I love her but didn't want to do. And and my mom was like, fuck this, I'm going to New Hampshire, which is right next door to Vermont.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I don't want to live with my mom in New Hampshire either, but I can tag along. I mean, I love her to death, don't get me wrong, but New Hampshire's... So like, I wanted to live on my own. Like, I got a taste of freedom. I'm like, I don't want to go back to live with my parents.
You never want to go back.
Oh, no.
And what the hell is in New Hampshire?
Nothing. Old people and Clint Eastwood. That's ice cream and...
He's also old.
Yeah. Yeah, just houses and bougie people. But it's nice up there, but...
Bougie.
They do have some nice beaches. But I tagged along and stayed out there, and then I moved out to Vermont, and it was originally to be with this girl, and so I was doing the thing with her. I was trying to start a new band. You know, I didn't know what was going on with Smokestack, so I was trying to start a new band, and I didn't really have any plans for the label much outside of making tapes. Like, I just started making tapes at that time, so I was like, oh, the label could just make tapes until I get a footing, whatever. And so originally I moved out there to be with Rachel, and the music sort of followed, but as things picked up, then I started becoming more busy with the music and more plugged in with the scene,
Mm-hmm.
and realized that it was sort of like a bedrock of opportunity. And so, you know, fast forward where I'm getting involved with music, and I have a job and stuff like that, and like our schedules aren't really lining up. And so what was supposed to be me living there to be with this girl sort of started turning into me doing this music grind full time. And I even got my former bandmate Casey to move up from Tampa about 6 months after to come help me do everything.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't really doing much down here, hopping place to place, not figuring it out. And then I needed help. So I was like, fuck it, you know, come up here, play music with me, help me run the label, shit, you know. So he moved up there, and you know, we started getting busy, and things didn't really work out between me and the girl. You know, she was in college full time, I was at work full time. We're not seeing each other much. And, you know, after she graduated, she was sort of like, you know, we had a good run, but, like, I think it's time for us to go our separate ways. So, you know, that was a couple months ago, and I was at a point where I was like, well, I really like where I'm at. I like this state. I like the people that I met. I like what I'm doing. There's really no reason for me to turn back now.
Yeah.
You know, not that I'm like turning my back on Tampa, but I you know, I wanted to stay where I was and still keep my roots here. Of course, that's why I came back.
Yeah, I mean, think about it too. You have two places you can perform at, and have,
exactly,
you know,
man.
You have people that would come out.
So I decided to stay and hang out and do my thing. So that's basically the story of how I ended up in Vermont. Because everyone's like, why the fuck did you leave Florida for Vermont? It's cold here. Yeah. I personally like the cold. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I haven't lived in it, but I think I would probably enjoy it a little more too, to be honest. Because it's fucking hot as shit, dude. It's
always.
Like, it's ridiculous.
Like unrelentless, dude.
Yeah, like today, for example, like our fucking AC's not working. That's why I have all the fucking windows open.
Yeah, and it sucks.
But, but no, that's really cool. I mean, so I guess another question I had was in regards to Red Handed Records. What exactly, how did that inception come about?
So that was basically my second attempt at a label, and basically, you know, it all stems from when I was in high school. I went to Blake High School here in Tampa, that art school, and I linked up with my buddy David Gracia, and we were sort of, you know, we were friends with a lot of bands at the high school, and so we sort of we've always been about trying to help push people to the next level, you know, try to help people who we think have potential and help them develop that potential, because, you know, I wanted my band to succeed and I wanted other people's bands to succeed too. We all succeed together. So we basically just like once we started booking shows and like getting CDs and stuff, like we were like, we can help other people do this and like just have a fun time with it. And like, you know, I don't know, it was just like a fun thing that we decided to do. So we would book shows for people, and we would create like CDs and stickers and stuff. And we had like a little label, Slasher Mini Records. That was his, because he had a whole Slasher Mini YouTube channel. He just added that as another facet to it. So that was just a little fun, kind of, you know, high school, you do just little projects for fun, whatever.
Yeah. Well,
and so that was a
pretty
template.
Interesting project to do in
right.
high school, a record label, like.
Well, because, you know, I mean, there was a lot of bands that I felt like were a lot more talented than they were getting credit for. You know, everyone was still listening to the same old thing from middle school or was on the radio, and I was like, guys, these guys are fucking good. Like, what are you doing? I would go to shows and be like, this is insane. Why is there nobody here right now?
Yeah.
So I was really trying to push the local scene to the next level, trying to make shit accessible and get people excited about what's going on at their own fingertips, you know?
Yeah.
But that sort of started going away as bands started to dissolve. Like, a lot of the bands that we were working with, like, went off to different schools and, like, just got jobs. And sort of, you know, same thing, like I said earlier, happened then. And we were just sort of left with a handful of bands, and it just wasn't. So I was focusing more so on my, you know, independent ventures and stuff. And the label was sort of on hold for a while. And then, so, like, a couple years after that, I'm out of high school at this point. And this promoter from out of town had like booked a show with the Brass Mug as like a benefit show, and he was trying to get a bunch of bands from Tampa on it, and he was like talking to me, trying to have me help him do it because he enlisted my band on there. And like, I ended up booking half the show for him. You know, I got like 4 out of the 8 bands on that bill. Yeah. And so it occurred to me that I was like, well, if there's new bands in the area now, plus the old bands I was working with, like, maybe I can give this record label a shot again, you know? I mean, it seems like there's more demand now, and, like, you know, maybe we could do it more legit now. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I got my hands on a tape player, and David and I, you know, mostly David figured it out and then taught me, but we figured out how to make tapes, and then it was history, you know? So I started booking shows again, started making tapes again, and we were calling it Cigar City Records. Yeah. Because of the obvious, you know.
Yeah, the brewery, yeah.
But, what's his name? Randy Ojeda. He runs Cigar City Management, Cigar City Radio. He reached out to us and told us that he has the legal rights to the name Cigar City Records. Yeah. And so he made us change it. And so we had sort of like a drawing board of names, you know. We went to different stuff. The whole thing was I wanted it to be something reflective of the city. Yeah. And so we had like a little drawing board contest, and had a couple different names, and Red Handed was a song title of a Smokestack song back in the day, so Casey said that might be a cool thing.
Yeah, it is cool. I like that name.
I wanted to name it something else, like something about palm trees, like, I don't know, something with palm trees related.
Palm records.
Yeah, something like that, I think it was, and they're like, no, that's totally lame. so like we had a vote on Facebook, and people voted for Red Handed, so I was like, fuck it, sure. And so we changed the branding and then started to get more serious about it. But it all started from that show, booking all those bands. And I was like, well, might as well. And then once we changed the name, got a showcase booked. And then, you know, I was like, all right, well, this thing might have a chance. Yeah. And we just haven't let go since then. Since we actually did it on the second attempt and took all the shit that I learned from the first time and sort of tried to learn from those mistakes and do it in a more legitimate way. It started to really get a good footing in Tampa, especially since I booked and organized the showcase after I'd already moved. I had done it at Beer and Brownies because I had hooked up Freddie Vila with the sound gig there, so he was booking shows there. I booked it through him there, and I put on a good amount of shows there through Red Handed at the very beginning, and that's what helped us get our footing. And then, you know, once Smokestack was operational again in Vermont, then I brought it to Vermont, and then from there it blew up. So I really think it's all about timing with this whole thing, you know. But that's how it started. Now, right? Yeah, like a madman.
Yeah, that's awesome though, man. That's really cool.
It's fun. If you guys ever find yourself coming up that way, you know, we got plenty of stuff. Like, we can get you plenty of shows, whatever.
Definitely gonna hit you up.
Please do. You know, it's a lot of fun up there, man.
So what's the process behind the making the tape exactly?
It's
Is it
definitely not
convoluted?
rocket science, you know. Like I feel like anyone can do it given the resources. I just happen to have the resources. So here's my setup. I have just like a regular receiver hooked up to some speakers, and then I have the tape deck. I have the receiver, the tape deck, and I have this like Tascam Porta Studio that I use as an interface. So it's just like a 90s piece of equipment. It's like a soundboard type of thing, but all I use it for is basically an interface. So I run the signal from my iPad into this Tascam. From the Tascam, it has a line out, and I put it into the line in of the tape machine.
Yeah.
And I also have this graphic EQ that sometimes I'll use. So like if I'm using the EQ, I'll put the line out into the EQ, and then from the EQ line out into the tape machine, and then all of that into the receiver so I can hear the playback, and then adjust the levels and do this. And so it's a standard tape deck. You got two bay sort of thing. One bay records, and then one bay is just for playback. And so I quite literally press every tape one by one. So like I just did this run for this band Comrade Nixon, and he wanted 50 tapes. So I sit there and did 50 tapes. Just side one, let it roll, pause the tape, flip it, side two, let it roll, stop it, rewind it, put it in the case, and start the next one.
How long does that take?
It's a long fucking process, especially when you have a job and like booking all these shows and like playing all these shows and just like all this other shit. It is crazy doing it one by one. You know, I wish I had a faster way. I was even paying my roommate to help me do it. It's like she wasn't doing much and she needed money. Yeah. So I was like, I'll pay you $2 a tape to fucking help me make these tapes just so we can get them out of here. Because holy shit. Because like that's phase one is getting the music all onto the tapes and getting them all ready to go. And then phase two, you get the artwork into the template. So we get the J-Card template made up. My friend Pete Perry, who now lives in Brooklyn, he helps me do all the artwork. So I'll send him the album art and all the soundtracks, or not soundtracks, what do you call it?
The
track
sound
list.
titles?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he'll format it into a J-Card template. And so what I'll do is I have this perforated paper that's in the shape of J-Cards already. You just like poke it out and it's already shaped into that. So it's not just like a regular piece of paper. It's a little thicker. So I'll get all the J-Cards printed out, 4 to each sheet. And I'll do that at the UPS store that we have. It's like they do printing, shipping, faxing, this and that. So it's like basically like a FedEx store for UPS. Okay. And they help me print out the J-Cards, and then I'll sit there and take out each one and fit it into the cassette case. You know, I'll write A on each of it, like A and B on either side of the cassette. You know, I'm still trying to figure out how to get that part more legit, like get actually ink printed onto the cassette. For now, I just fucking Sharpie A and B on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because whatever.
I mean, it makes it more vintage.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's cool.
But they actually look pretty legit. I wish I brought one to show you guys, but they don't look bad, man. You know, once you get the artwork in there and the shell and everything, like, you know, David really taught me everything I know about it, and I've just been having a hell of a time doing it. It's a lot of fun. Takes a long time. But, like, when you see the final product, you're like, all right, that's pretty fucking sweet. Yeah. And, like, I think tapes sound cool. You know, people think it's a novelty or whatever. I personally think it sounds great, you know?
Well, I mean, I think there's a big push right now for vinyl and tape and stuff like that. Like, anything that's kind of old
coming
school.
back, you know? Like, people like it more because it's tangible, you know? It's tangible, it's warm, fuzzy, it's different. And it just sounds cool, man.
It does sound cool. Are you starting to look into vinyl, like pressing vinyls and stuff like that?
Definitely, yeah. We're definitely looking into doing vinyl. We're gonna start with lathe cuts, just because they're cheaper and more accessible. There's this company called Little Elephant that we're looking into, and if you guys don't know what a lathe cut is, basically, it's a different material. So like vinyl is made out of like the vinyl plastic material. Lathe is like a cheaper material that you can still do like the same concept with. And it sounds a little less in quality, so like a little more raw, and like less like compressed and stuff. Not
as full, I guess, or whatever.
Not as full. Definitely a little more like gritty. But for certain things that works, you know what I'm saying? For certain things that works. And so a lot of the times what they'll do is instead of like cutting the groove, like what they'll do in a vinyl, they'll like impress the groove into the material. And so the grooves are not as like deep and sharp. And that's why the quality is a little more muddy, you know? Okay. Maybe not muddy, but just not as nice as vinyl. So that's why they're cheaper. But this company, Little Elephant, what they do is like they take the lathe material, like the same cheaper material, but instead of impressing the groove into it, they'll actually cut it with like the same process you'd cut with the right record. They cut into the lathe, so they make a deeper, better groove, and it just makes the music sound better. So even though it's still on a lathe, it's like the cheaper, material. It still sounds pretty legit.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not gonna sound like, coming out of Citizens Press or whatever, Pirates Press or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not gonna sound like that, but it's not gonna sound, like you made it yourself in a basement or something. It's gonna sound legit,
I don't even know how that process works with like a vinyl. Like how is I don't like the transfer of music from that vinyl to, for example, like a speaker or whatever.
Oh, like actually from the record through the
like
needle into the speaker.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, I know. Science is crazy, man. They should do like a Bill Nye episode on that or something.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
From what I understand, and like a lot of the times they're diamond tip needles or like something cheaper than that, but like the needle will run along the groove, and for some reason that'll send the signal into the speakers. I don't know why. I don't know how they figured that out, how that was discovered, or like the science behind it. But
it's record. So like
it sounds great though. I love it
because it's technically like it comes from tape though, right? Like originally, like the
it comes from big reels of tape. So that's what's being fed into the thing. So like originally that's what it was. Like when they were cutting albums in the studio, they were like, from what I understand, they're cutting onto these big reels of tape, and then that is then getting cut into the vinyl as they're going. So if you fuck up, you gotta do it again.
Like almost like painted on top of it.
Exactly. That's how they did it back in the day. Now with digital, obviously, is different, and then you like. If you you can record anything onto digital and then run it through tape, put it on vinyl and stuff. But back in the day, they just cut it straight into the tape and cut it straight to the vinyl.
That's interesting. I mean, it's kind of a similar concept to like a CD, like the whole like the needle thing. Yeah.
Now I don't know how they took that vinyl and then duplicated like the rest. Like they took the reel of tape and just fed it to a bunch of blank. I don't know how the hell. But yeah,
No, it's that's interesting.
It baffles me how they did shit back in the day, dude, without the resources we have today.
Well, I think for people back in the day, they just kind of had to know how to do all that stuff. Like for example, I'm sure like your everyday person probably would know how to fix most things. Like the majority of people would be like handy, for example, like in fixing like I don't know regular materials or whatever.
That's fair.
Whereas now, since technology, you just kind of hire someone to do it for you.
Exactly.
But yeah, I feel like it was probably like not like they were like, oh yeah, this is pretty easy to do. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, just do it myself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas now we're like, well, it's not on the fucking computer. How am I listening to it right now?
Dude, right? I think that's why people like tapes. What the fuck?
Yeah. No, I think it's awesome, man. Yeah, it is interesting how that's. I think I've heard on interviews actually, even comedians are starting to put their shit down on tape and vinyl because they're actually making money off of it. Like the digital sales are just not doing as well as the actual physical copies are, which is crazy to me.
Dude, yeah, vinyl just surpassed digital sales for the first time in history.
Isn't that crazy?
Really? That's
nuts.
crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean that could also be like because of Spotify and all that stuff, but regardless, it's still fucking cool.
You know what I think is a big contributor to that is how creative they're getting with it now. So they're kind of all sorts of crazy colors, sorts of crazy shapes, and like limited releases. Like they're really making it like collectible and cool for the listener. So it's like something that they want to be a part of, where it's like it's hard to make a digital thing unique, you know.
Yeah, it is.
But like I personally like, I at first I was sort of skeptical about the colored vinyls because I thought it was like hipster shit. But like I started getting into it, man. Like going to shows and buying records, I thought it was kind of cool,
Yeah. Yeah, so you listen to vinyl then, right? I'm assuming.
Oh, my free time, yeah, dude. Like if I can help it, I'm listening to vinyl or tape, a lot of the times, like, I'm listening to my headphones going to and from work and stuff. When I'm at the house, I'm listening to vinyl, man. That's why I love to get vinyl at shows. I like to get, like, Sonic Graffiti vinyl. I always get through the mail. I always try to get my favorite guys on vinyl, new and old,
That's fucking cool.
Like, my dad, when I was young, just had a crate laying around, and since then, I love it, dude. I just think it sounds cool, and it's nice to not have to mess with it. It just rides out. And then you flip it over and it rides out, You don't have to go around messing and shuffling and skipping and this and that. And, like, it just sounds warmer and more full.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, my dad, he just got a record player, basically, like I think a '60s one, a vintage one, as a gift, and he played Coldplay's, what was it? I think it was Parachutes, their first album, and I'm super familiar with that album because I used to listen to it all the time. And listening to it through the speakers, I was like, wow, this actually sounds like I'm in the studio right now. That's kind of the vibe I got from it. It was pretty cool, you know. And
I'm telling you,
yeah,
see? There you go.
yeah. No, I mean, I would do it. I probably should actually just buy a fucking vinyl. Actually, Laura and Yanni have one that they play through all the time.
Oh, you guys can hear it over here.
Yeah. Well, they just play music in general all the time. But no, I have my speakers set up. I'll show it to you later. But it's like we have like a little studio thingy in there.
That is cool. I would love to see that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess like this is kind of like the last question I have here for you. But I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit, but it would be kind of interesting to get your take on, I guess, how do you foresee, I guess, the music industry like going on, I guess.
Well, the music industry is obviously not going anywhere. You know, we all thought that it was gonna end up like the housing market or something, like it was gonna like surge out and then just stop. Like, it's definitely becoming less of a fantasy to have a career in music. You know,
You think so, really?
Oh, absolutely, man. Now that I'm like as involved in it now, like people really make it seem like a 1 in a million thing, and it's really not, dude. It's really how much you put into it. I feel like the music industry is gonna continue to be a bedrock for opportunity for those who want it, man. Because everyone's always looking for something new.
Yeah.
You know, they're ultimately looking what people are paying attention to, what people, you know, what's selling and stuff. But I feel like, you know, people are gonna start taking more initiative and more creative drive to sort of shape the music industry in the way that they want it to be, or the way it should be. Mm-hmm. So it's like less big money and more like big community. Everyone's gonna get paid, everyone's gonna eat, but it's gonna be less of like a cookie cutter product type of thing. You know, art and music is definitely gonna matter more, I think.
There's a lot of lo-fi stuff right now.
Dude, it's huge, man. It's really huge. It's all about what resonates with people, man. And so like sometimes easy money with the charts is great and all, but like you get something that resonates with people and you put backing behind it. You know, Red Handed Records is at a point now where we've joined forces with our sister label Gold Clover Records, and it's this group of guys in Vermont who you know, one of them has an extensive background in the music business in LA and is now getting all his LA buddies involved and looking at what we're doing, and they're starting to see some real opportunity here. And I'm just a 24-year-old kid sitting around making tapes.
Kid?
Yeah, well, yeah. I was just
young adult, sir.
24-year-old male, cis white.
Yeah, cisgender.
No, yeah, but no, it's just, you know. And all of a sudden now I'm talking to people from LA and from Canada and from all over the United States, and like really saying how much is out there, because you know, the reason why I think that we've been led to believe the fantasy thing, that it's like a big fantasy, is because of the lens that we have on what we're exposed to. You know, you see the big stadium stuff or the big platinum selling stuff, you know.
Well, that's the misconception, right? The misconception is that is that to be successful in the music industry, you have to be a millionaire.
No, man. As long as you're paying your bills and you're consistently working and doing stuff, there's a bunch of like people in the music business that have a bunch of different hats. You know, from production to recording, gigging, touring. There's people that play in these big touring bands that like they don't even listen to the type of music that they're in the band for. They're just getting a check, and then they have their own projects on the side. You know, so I feel like it's going to be a more level playing field going forward for people now. So that's why I really always encourage people to, like, you know,
stick with it, right?
Stick with it, stick through it, and pick it up. Like, form new bands. Like, put yourself out there, you know, because like, you don't have to be successful right away.
No,
you know?
You're not going to.
I mean, I've been doing this for like 8 to 10 years, and I'm just getting started.
Yeah,
you know, I'm going to be doing this till I'm like 70, 80, you know, so there's a long way to go. There's no rush.
Yeah.
And you know, what's going to help is when people realize that bands need to go to other bands' shows. You know, it's not like every man for himself for the success. You know, like everyone succeeds together by helping everyone build and support each other. So like the more we support each other, the bigger the community grows, the more shot of success we all have. But like, never think that it's out of reach to have a career in music and actually pay your bills. Your parents are gonna tell you to go to school, this and that. Listen, you go to school and you're gonna be drowned in debt for the rest of your life doing some job that you don't want to do. You
without
chase
without like a fulfilled life.
Exactly, but I mean, I'm taking this thing that I love doing, and basically the only thing I'm good at, and I'm making money off of it. Actually, making money off of it, making success off of it, and and it's due to nothing but hard work and determination. And like a big thanks to all the people on my team. I got to give them a shout out to Casey, Thunder, Hudson, Patty, all those guys, Dave. They help me and keep me sane and help me do what I'm doing. But if I would have just given up all the times that I wanted to actually give up, like, it would have sucked, and I would just be probably going to like ITT Tech or something. You know what I'm saying? But like, I'm here doing the thing, and it's definite. It's stressful, but in a good way. Because you want to see yourself succeed and stuff, and I want that for other musicians too. I want to see you guys going on tour and like going to Europe and like, getting your boys to go on tour and go to Europe and like sell stuff. Like, it's totally possible, man.
It is, dude. It's funny because I didn't realize this until I got a little older, but I kind of realized like this is totally possible to do. You just have to work at it, and you can't give up. Honestly, like, it's a marathon. It's not a race. It's a marathon. If you can stay in it, you'll eventually start. I mean, I would say success is what you said, is paying your bills. That's my dream, is to just travel the world, play music, and be able to pay bills, man.
I would say that like the lifestyle I'm living now is like me achieving the dreams that I had 10 years ago when I was in like middle school or something. Like, man, I wish I could do this or that. Like, I'm gigging consistently. I've been on tour and I'm going on tour again. I'm paying my bills. I have a spot, like, I've been able to live in another state without having to come back with my tail between my legs, going to my parents. I've been able to make it doing the music, and like, it's just a grind, and I know everybody else can do it too, man. It's a bright future for music right now.
Are you doing 9 to 5 right now, or are you doing like, you just kind of working part time or anything like that?
I work about 30 to 40 hours a week in a restaurant, 40 hours a week on a good week, but I do request a lot of time for
for doing
music
shit.
stuff. And my boss is a musician, so he understands, but I am a full-time restaurant position, and it is quite demanding of a job. Like, the restaurant is called Our House Bistro, and like, it's popping every single night, dude. There is no slow night there. So like, it's quite a commute there, and then like a banging 10-hour shift, and then a 20-minute skate back, and so it kind of makes it hard to get shit done around that schedule. But so yeah, like, the stress is a big part. I think you have to be able to handle stress to be able to do this thing that we do,
and depending on other people to give you answers, for example.
It's the fucking worst.
Dude. Well, no, I mean, we're both like the same. We're both in the same boat there, like, where we're trying to book shit and like no one responds,
just waiting on people.
That's what it is, dude.
Struggle,
because I know you're like this. I know you're a guy that is extremely forward, and you're it's not like, I know you respond quickly. You're not someone that just like, I'm gonna leave it in there for fucking months.
I'm not. Well, don't give me a whole lot of credit there, because it depends. Sometimes I'm on top of it, and then sometimes I'm not, But I try to be as much as I can. I will say that. Sometimes I'm not as on top of it as much as I'd like to be. And so to the people that I don't get back to right away, I'm sorry. But for the most part, I do try to be as responsive as possible, because I've been there. I've been in that seat where I'm waiting for the answer back, and it sucks. And and
it's like, does. If you're gonna say no, say no.
Yeah, I would legit rather than just say no.
That's an important thing too. People got to learn how to say no. You're not gonna hurt my feelings or anything. Like, you're gonna waste my time, is what you're gonna do.
That's exactly what it is.
Which is way worse than you just saying no.
It's like, I've sent this fucking email 8 times already. Just tell me no. Just say, like, I don't like your fucking band. Like, I don't care.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. Please. We've gotten that response once before. Like, legit, just like, they were just like, your music doesn't fit our venue. And I was like, I don't agree, but all right, cool, whatever.
And I've said that to people too about shows. Be like, hey, this is not necessarily the right fit for this show, but let's see what we can work on. Maybe do something else. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be a dick about it, but like, don't waste people's time, you know.
And if someone gets offended by that, then they shouldn't be doing this.
Oh yeah, they're gonna have a hard time.
Listen, man, we're gonna be sitting here all day if we get into ego with musicians here. it's a tricky thing.
Well, actually, going on that, I haven't really met anyone that I haven't not gotten along with. Maybe I'm just oblivious, but I haven't met anyone here.
Maybe it's just different up there. I don't know. Up there, everyone's trying to do the whole rock star thing.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not trying to throw shade or anything, but
throw some shade, bro.
it definitely does seem like ego is a problem in music everywhere. You know, like people, whether it's entitlement or just like not being conscientious of the show and trying to take it for yourself or whatever. But
playing over.
Yeah, like playing over, or playing too loud, or like not wanting to work with certain people, or like being snobs in a certain way, or not going to other shows.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it does nothing but hold you back, I think. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've got nothing to prove. I've got no one to impress. I'm just doing my thing. But like sometimes people are so set on like a certain image and like a certain success level and stuff, and like they only kind of think of themselves, or like, oh my, you know, like this. I don't know, man.
I wouldn't fuck. Yeah, I personally, if I saw that, I just wouldn't fuck around with them.
Maybe it's just different up there. I don't know. It is a smaller community up there, but there's a lot going on though, man. I mean, between DIY bands, bar bands, and touring bands, like there's multiple shows every weekend, all the time. Like every bar in town has a show going on. Every basement venue has a town. You know, like we're getting to a point where like double booking is becoming a problem because we'll have like 3 red-handed shows on the same night, and we're like, gosh, gotta fucking scale it back here.
Yeah. Are you guys looking into doing recording for bands at all?
Yeah, so Gold Clover Records actually has a home studio that it's got all the professional equipment that I've seen in every other studio. You know, they use Pro Tools. They have a big Mackie board and all the pre's and all these really top of the line mics, but it's in this guy's basement. You know, it's a really nice refurbished basement, and it's a full on studio with separate ISO rooms and stuff like that. And I've done some recording there, and some of my bands have, and other like friends of my bands. And so what we're doing now, we've actually just begun, while I'm here, they've been working on it up there, is we're working on bands that we're looking to sign. We're getting them recorded and sending their music to LA.
That's
so
awesome.
That the people, our partners in LA, can review it and stuff. But yeah, we are definitely in the business of recording as many people as possible. You know, and not just from Vermont too. If people make the trek up from like Massachusetts or Canada or even Florida, you know, we're trying to record as many people as possible and get them out there. But I'm definitely happy to say we are in a position now where we can help bands with the recording aspect of it, because we got a studio that's accessible to us.
Yeah, because we kind of just going through a couple studios ourselves, we decided like we wanted to start learning how to do it ourselves and take it into our own hands. So
it's pretty accessible nowadays, man.
It is. I mean, we recorded an album. I mean, there's definitely things that I think we probably would have ended up maybe getting a better sound out of through our studio, but that's just because we lack some of the equipment that they have. But I think in general it came out pretty decent.
I will say for me, a big thing for studios is like the time thing. They just help you pump it out so much quicker because that's their job, is to do that. Whereas like, you know, recording an album on your own, like there's a lot of room for like getting pushed back and delayed and stuff.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said about recording it, mixing and mastering it yourself. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I personally would rather pay the money to get it done.
Yeah. It took like 2 years. For us to do it. We didn't master it ourselves, but regardless, like the mixing and recording like process, it took 2 years. Yeah. So it was a lengthy process. But I guess do you have any other questions that you can think of?
I'm good.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we kind of went through everything, and you spoke very eloquently, by the way.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that, because I sort of let the mouth ride sometimes.
No, you really did. You had very concise thoughts, so that was cool. But plugs. Let me get some plugs for you.
All right, man. Well, definitely check out all the bands on Facebook at Smokestack Lightning, Comrade Nixon, and Potentially Lobsters. Next coming up stuff is the 26th, 10/26 at the Monkey House. We're doing a cover set with a bunch of other local bands, so Vermont people, get out to the Monkey House. Check out Gold Clover Records and Red Handed Records and House of I.
Yeah. Well, they know us. And like an email contact, anything like that they can, if they want to hit you up.
Yeah, definitely hit me up at Raf Soto, RAF Soto. You can find all that on Facebook, and I'll be happy to share any other contact information from there. Just look for the patches. It'll make sense.
Awesome, man. But thank you for coming, man. And hopefully, the next time you come up, we can do it again. That'd be nice.
Yeah, that'd be great, man. Maybe I can see you play then too.
Yeah. Well, if we have anything booked, yeah, we haven't been able to book in a second. So.
No answers.
Yeah, I think it's just like that time of the season where people are just kind of like they're I guess getting ready for the new year and stuff. So
absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, hopefully soon we'll start getting stuff. But anyways, yeah, man, thank you for coming on, bro.
Awesome.
Yeah, later.
Thank you.